how many aliens? I am not at liberty to answer that. All right, everyone, welcome to Ask an Astrophysicist about my life. That title needs some work, but yeah, essentially, I wanted to celebrate getting 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. So I opened it up on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and here for any questions that you might have for me, an astrophysics PhD student. And this is me doing my best to answer them. Wish me luck. All right, we've got a lot of just general questions about my job, my past, so I'm just gonna start with a basic overview of how I got here. I am a astrophysics PhD student at Arizona State University. Standard disclaimer, I don't speak for the university, I'm not the representative, all opinions are my own, blah, 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 blah. Okay, whatever. So yes, I live in Arizona, it is hot, and I am 1 year through the hopefully 5-year process of getting my PhD. I graduated in 2021 with a degree in physics and astronomy from Whitman College, which is a small liberal arts school in Walla Walla, Washington. I also minored in math and French, so I do speak French. At Whitman, I did research on dark matter, and I've actually got my thesis here. Exploring Bottlenecks in Asymmetric Dark Matter Bound State Foundation. The title's too long to fit on the spine of the book, but that's what I studied. I used mostly math to try to understand how this one specific type of dark matter could form bound states in the early universe. So that was my research then, and that is not the research I do now. So now I am what you would call a computational extragalactic astronomer, which just means I use computers, simulations, to study how galaxies that are not our own Milky Way evolve. I specifically look at the kind of outflows of gas that come from supermassive black holes in the center. So you could summarize it by saying I run simulations to study galaxy farts. And that's what I'm spending 5 years of my life on. It's fun. It is actually pretty cool. So there's my basic history, the basics of what I'm doing now. Let's get into some of the more specific questions. So starting at the beginning, we have what is an astrophysicist? And I think that's an important question to answer because maybe not everybody knows. An astrophysicist is somebody who studies space, and there are a ton of different subcategories in that. You can break it up kind of into what scale of the universe do you study. You could be a planetary scientist. You could study the planets within our own solar system, specific things about their geology, their formation, their atmospheres. You can be a solar scientist studying our sun, or a stellar astrophysicist studying stars in general. You could be a galactic astronomer studying the Milky Way galaxy. You could be an exoplanetary scientist studying planets not in our solar system. You could be an extragalactic astronomer like me studying galaxies that aren't the Milky Way. You could study cosmology, which is all the kind of large scale beginning of the universe, end of the universe, dark energy, stuff like that. You can do more theoretical physics within the context of astrophysics. So you can do particle physics, dark matter research, to some extent things like wormholes and string theory. That's all kind of high theory physics. So yeah, astrophysicists study the universe, and you can do it in a whole bunch of different ways. Like I said, I'm on the computational extragalactic side. So there were a couple questions about how did you know that you wanted to be an astrophysicist, which I think is a great question. I first got interested in astrophysics when I was around 12-ish. I had a friend who had a couple kind of pop science astrophysics books on her bookshelf, and I borrowed them, and I was like, holy shit, this is so cool. And then I just started reading more and more books on astronomy. So books by people like Carl Sagan, Brian Greene, Sean Carroll, Neil deGrasse Tyson, all of these astrophysics, more for the layperson type books, were what first got me interested in astronomy. The specific things in those books that fascinated me was kind of the broadness of, holy crap, we don't know anything about our universe, there is so much to learn. I loved that. I loved how pretty space is. I mean, if the JWST pictures have shown anything, it's that we live in a really, really beautiful universe. So yeah, I got interested in astrophysics on kind of just a theoretical level. I loved reading about space. And then in high school, when I actually started taking upper level math and physics courses, I was like, okay, I do like this kind of work. And then I had several internships, which I highly, highly recommend for anybody interested in any kind of science. Try to find an internship, because the experience of doing research is entirely different from the experience of learning about science in a classroom. And if you go on to do science for your career, you want to be sure you actually like doing research and not just learning about science in the classroom. So I had an internship at a pharmaceutical research lab after my sophomore year of high school, and I loved it. But the actual chemistry part of it I thought was interesting, but it didn't fascinate me as much as astronomy. So at that point, I kind of was like, okay, I know I want to do research. I'm pretty sure I want to do it in astronomy. But then the next summer, I did some internships in politics, and I was like, oh, it might be interesting to go into politics or environmental science. So when I got to college, I had a lot of different possibilities rattling around in my brain. It was only after I took my first actual astronomy class the second semester of college that I was like, nope, this is what I want to do. A really common question that I got was, can you recommend any books about astrophysics? And like I said, it was books on astrophysics that set me down this path in the first place, so yes, I definitely have some recommendations. A lot of the books that I first read are still at my parents' house, so I don't have them here, but I do have a few here. One that I really, really highly recommend is The End of Everything by Katie Mack. This is a really fascinating book that talks about what is going to happen to our universe. And she walks through a bunch of the different theories and possibilities and why some are more likely than the others. So if you're interested in kind of large-scale cosmology, what's going to happen to our universe, check this one out. If you're more interested in small-scale, kind of planetary scientist, a glimpse into the life of an astronomer, this is a super fun read, How I Killed Pluto and Why It Had It Coming. It is by Mike Brown, who is one of the astronomers who essentially led to the demotion of Pluto from planet to dwarf planet. So if you're interested in how Pluto got demoted, the process of it, the science of it, check this book out. The other book that I have here is more of a physics book than an astronomy book. It is called Lost in Math, and it's a little bit more high level, I would say. It's about how theoretical physicists lately have gotten so caught up in the beauty of math that they tend to favor more beautiful mathematical structures and models of the universe over ones that might be more correct. Now, that is not necessarily an opinion that is shared, but it's kind of a fascinating perspective when it comes to things like string theory, which can be really mathematically beautiful, but is there any actual science behind it? So if you ever think about those sort of things, check out Lost in Math. On kind of another note, if you are interested in string theory, there is a great string theorist named Brian Greene, who has actually written a lot of books. His book, The Elegant Universe, is a great counterpoint to this one because that book is about how amazing the elegance of string theory is, whereas this one is about kind of how dangerous the elegance of those theories are. So check out really any book by Brian Greene if you're interested in that kind of string theory, theoretical physics stuff. Another theoretical physicist who's written several books, kind of like Brian Greene, is Sean Carroll. One that I found particularly interesting is From Eternity to Here. It is about time and our concepts of time in cosmology. It's just a kind of interesting philosophical read. And while I haven't read all of Sean Carroll's books, I think that if you're interested in some of those more philosophical, physicsy, how did we come to be here questions, he's a good author for that. Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time is an absolute classic. It's a little bit more dense, but there's a reason it's so well known. Similarly, Carl Sagan's Cosmos is a great kind of overarching book if you're interested in astrophysics, maybe as it was a few decades ago, but it still holds up pretty well. If you like science and sci-fi movies and want to read more about the science behind them, there's a book called The Science of Interstellar by Kip Thorne, who is an astrophysicist that they actually brought on set while they were making that movie. I haven't read that book, to be completely honest, but I have friends who have, and they highly recommend it, so I'm throwing it out there for you too. Another book that I haven't actually read, but I feel pretty confident recommending, is Space at the Speed of Light, which is a kind of fast-paced read that walks through the history of the universe. It's by an Oxford professor who's a really wonderful science communicator on a bunch of different social medias, and I think it's just a good general overview of our universe. Alright, this next set of questions is kind of about like my day-to-day life as an astrophysicist and the process of being one, the classes, stuff like that. So the first one is, what technologies do you use most on your day-to-day job? There has also been people asking about what coding languages should I learn, so we'll kind of lump those into this answer. I would say the most common thing I do is code. I am a computational astrophysicist, but something a lot of people don't realize is that astrophysics is a lot of coding, because pretty much everything you do requires computers now. When you work with telescope data, that data goes straight into computers and then you have to analyze it using computers. So it's, even if you are using telescopes, you're also using computers. Python is definitely the best programming language to learn as just an overarching, useful programming language. It's what I use most often. As I said, I do computational work and I run simulations, and those simulations are usually massive and kind of computationally expensive. They have to be run on supercomputers, so those are written in C. If you're interested in more of the computational simulation stuff, learning a higher level language like C might be useful, but start with Python for sure. The technologies I use, like I said, I run these on supercomputers. I access that through my laptop. Pretty much everything I do on my laptop here. So the tools are actually pretty basic. So there's been some questions too about how do I get into astronomy? How do I learn more about this? Those books that I just recommended are a great place to start. There's also a lot of amazing resources online. There are so many fantastic science communicators on the internet. Here is a list of some of the people that I love on TikTok, but a lot of them also have YouTube channels or Twitter, so you can connect them all there. There's a lot of great series, like the Crash Course Astronomy series is actually a really excellent overview. I'm also doing my own Astronomy 101 series on this channel, so you can learn more about basic astronomy as you would learn it in, say, an intro undergrad class. If you're interested in the more observational side and want to get a telescope, I think really anything by Celestron or Orion are pretty great beginner telescopes. Now, telescopes can get kind of expensive and you get what you pay for. So just do your research on those brands, but I've heard good things about both of them. You can also look around for local observatories. A lot of places have local observatories or planetariums where they do science nights for the public, and you can go look through some bigger telescopes. And I highly recommend taking advantage of those programs if you're near anything like that. I got some great questions from people who are interested in going into astrophysics and want to know a little bit more about what it's like, the actual process of being an astrophysics student. Also, Atlas decided to join us. So just general advice I would give, the most important thing is to try to find research opportunities. If you want to go on to grad school, one of the most important things you can have on your resume or CV is research experience, because as a grad student, you're not really a student, you're a researcher. I have been told by people at my university that if you are getting A's in your classes, You are spending too much time on your coursework, and you should be spending that time on your research. That's how much research is prioritized. So if you're already in college, talk to your professors, see if you can do research with them. This research that I did for my undergrad thesis, I did with a physics professor at my university the summer in between my junior and senior years. It was a great experience because I got a sense of the type of work my professors do, and I got to work with people I already had a relationship with. You can also look for research experience for undergraduates, or REUs. These are programs put on by universities and some national labs across the country that are really great, so look those up. Yeah, in general, biggest advice I can give, research experience is really important. The next piece of advice I can give is it is not going to be easy. I tried to be really open. I struggle really bad with imposter syndrome. When I started grad school, I got hit with really, really bad anxiety because I just felt like I didn't deserve to be here. I felt like I wasn't smart enough, I was behind, there was so much I didn't know. And I think it's really important to remember that you aren't alone. And if you are in a program doing the classes, doing the work, you deserve to be there. I think that one of the biggest struggles that people face when they go on to do especially graduate level research isn't external, it's internal. It's your own self-doubt and motivation, because getting a PhD is hard. But I really, really believe it's worth it if you're passionate about the field. And so I want to answer here too, what's the fun part of being an astrophysicist is we are studying and trying to answer the questions that humanity has been trying to answer since humanity has existed. Where did we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? And these are the overarching questions of astrophysics. And no matter which one of those little subfields you're in, you are in some way contributing to that. I study how galaxies evolve. I study how the galaxies like ours came to be and what might happen to us in the future. I love studying the universe and seeing how we fit into these cosmic cycles. It's just really, really powerful, I think. I'm just gonna wrap it up with a few kind of random quickfire questions. Like I said, I work at Arizona State, and my job title varies depending on the course of the year and the funding. When you are a PhD student, at least in a lot of universities in the US, you can either get funded as a TA, a teaching assistant, or an RA, a research assistant. If your advisor has grant money, they can pay you to do your research and you are an RA. If your advisor doesn't have grant money, you get paid by the university to teach a course and you're a TA. Right now, over the summer, my advisor does have the funding for me to be a RA, so that is my job title. I do my research. During the school year though, I TA. I teach intro astronomy lab classes, and that is my more technical job title. You could also say that my job title is grad student and all that that entails. We've got here, can/should I get in a relationship while studying astrophysics? Absolutely. I am in a 4-year-long relationship with my boyfriend. I really, really strive for a work-life balance. I think a lot of people get really into, if I am doing a PhD, that is the only thing that can exist in my life. And I personally don't think that's healthy. A work-life balance is really important. I try to only actually work the number of hours a week that I'm getting paid for because, you know, I want to have a life. How do you play the drums without neighbors complaining? I have an electric drum set, so I play with headphones all the time except for when I'm recording my videos for TikTok, when I just have a little speaker that I put right next to the phone. So yeah, I got an electric set primarily because I live in a small apartment complex and I didn't want to be that asshole. Some more advice I would give to especially undergraduate students, a lot of times you have to take classes that you maybe aren't the most interested in. Someone asked what the hardest class I had to take was. For me, it was probably electricity and magnetism because I don't really have any interest in electricity and magnetism. And it's a lot of really weird math and I didn't love the way the class was taught. And so the class just kind of sucked for me. But I knew that if I wanted to go on to study galaxies in the universe and do what I was passionate about, I had to take this one stupid little physics class. And so I would honestly try to find the things that connected electricity and magnetism to the things in astronomy I liked. the weird magnetic fields in our solar system, just whatever I could find that was like, okay, there is some application here to what I want to do. And so if you have a class that you kind of hate, but you like a lot of other things about the field, all of physics, astronomy, math, coding, it's all related. So try to find a way to take the thing that you hate and relate it to something that you like. If not for extragalactic, what field of astrophysics would I want to go into? I thought originally I would want to go into more of the theoretical physics, but honestly doing this dark matter research that I did made me realize that so much of it is so theoretical that we will never know if that's actually the case in the universe, and I didn't really want to do that with my career, but I wanted to stay large scale. So I would say I would switch from like computational to observational. It would be cool to use telescopes and, you know, kind of use that observational data. So that would be my second choice behind the simulations. Do I get irked by movies getting astrophysics wrong? To be honest, I always try to turn off that part of my brain. When I watch something, I do it for escapism and entertainment, and so if I'm analyzing it from a scientific viewpoint, everything pretty much falls through. Pretty much every sci-fi franchise is built around some sort of faster than light thing, and that is just not possible with our understanding of the universe. And so as soon as you start to think about that, every single sci-fi thing falls through. The ones that actually really bug me are the ones that don't try, like Moonfall. That's just stupid. I didn't even see it, but the trailers pissed me off so much. That bugged me. So the ones that do kind of try, I totally respect that. The ones that are just ridiculous or like trying to get people scared about space for no reason, that's what bugs me. And finally, because this is truly a frequently asked question for any astrophysicist, aliens. In my opinion, I think they're out there. I think it's ridiculous that in such a giant, potentially infinite universe, anyone would think we are the only place life has developed. I don't think we've been visited by them. Earth is pretty small and insignificant, so why would we be important? And all the UFO stuff, like I think if we were visited by an interstellar species, we would know for sure. So there you go. One astrophysicist take on aliens. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. I tried to answer as many questions as I could, at least the general themes of the questions. I know I didn't answer everybody's, but I will do another one of these in the future. Feel free to leave any other questions you have in the comments. I will try to get around to them if they are kind of quick answers. You know, like, subscribe, ring that little bell, all that jazz. Thank you all so much for your questions, and thank you again for 1,000 subscribers.